Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, and I'm the Midnight Soaper because let's just be for real. Us creative people's brain works best in the middle of the night. So stick around and make some soap with me. First, we are going to start by melting our hard oils and butters as we are doing here. And then we are going to pour them into our liquid oils. And that's going to make the temperature of both pretty much just about what I need it, because the liquid oils were actually room temperature. So now I'm going to add in my organic coconut milk, and that's my favorite brand right there. After adding that in, I'm going to just stick blend that just a little bit just to get it well incorporated. And it's always best, I find, to add your milks in with your oils before you add your lye solution. It just seems to mix better for me. When I add it later, sometimes it will speed up trace. So it just seems like it works better at this stage. Now I'm going to add my lye water. I didn't need to strain it this time because it didn't have any lye lint. I used it when it was just a little bit warmer. Now to stick blend, just swirl and burp your stick blender. If you swirl the stick blender first, it just seems to get a lot more air bubbles out than just burping it in general. So now we are just going to stick blend to a light trace. You don't want to over stick blend it because we will be adding colors and fragrance and everything else. So just go to a light trace. I always keep a little bucket of water over to the side to put my stick blender in to get any excess soap off of. But now we're just going to take our spatula and stir out any little excess air bubbles that might be in there before we pour off our first color. Okay, so I'm just going to get a little container and pour my first layer for my soap in there. And I actually just took my mica powders and mixed with my fragrance oil, so I didn't have to add any extra oils to my soap batter, and mixed those together and poured them into my soap. This first layer was supposed to be caramel. Well, I did use Caramel Sensation by Rustic Escentuals, and I was going to do a caramel layer on the bottom, but the two layers I put on top, the swirl, the chocolate and vanilla, really overpowered them, so you don't get any caramel fragrance at all for some reason. So you will see, even though I use caramel fragrance, I don't actually end up using the name caramel in the soap. But just stick blend this really well. Works better than a spatula. If you just use your spatula, you're not really going to get the true color, and you may end up with little bits of like pockets of color in your soap mixture. So just stick blend that until it's well incorporated before you pour it into your mold. As you can see, I clearly get a little stir happy, but this is my bottom layer, and I actually do want it to be a little bit thicker than my top layers, because when I pour my layers over top of it, I don't want them to sink down into the bottom layer. So just put that into the mold, and you want to bang it down once it's put in there on the ground, just to get any little air pockets that are in there, to get them out. If you've noticed, that's a theme with things. Air pockets are really bad when it comes to soap. So now that I've banged that down on the ground, got any little air bubbles out, I'm just going to stir my soap batter that's been sitting over to the side just a bit. where it's kind of sit there a few minutes. And then I'm going to pour off my top two colors. I keep saying layers, but it's not layers. I'm doing a swirl on the top. I mean, I guess I kind of put it in layers the way that I pour it. But it's going to look like a swirl when it's all finished. But you're just going to divide the rest of the soap batter off into these two containers as evenly as possible and mix the mica and fragrance in each one. I put the color up on the screen and the fragrance that I used, chocolate brownie is what I used in this left one. The chocolate brownie and vanilla really overpowered the caramel, and I think that's why I ended up not being able to smell the caramel, but it all turned out really good. But in this one, I'm going to use vanilla pound cake and sweet and creamy. It's Rustic Essentials along with my color and a touch of titanium dioxide. And then just mix these really well until they're really well incorporated. But yeah, those fragrances were so strong, especially the brownie batter, that it really just overpowered the caramel, and it ended up smelling amazing though. But I'm going to hit it with a stick blender and just get those colors and fragrance really well incorporated before I start doing my other layers to make my swirl. Okay, now we're going to pour these layers in no particular form or fashion. Just be sure to alternate your colors and stir in between pours if it looks like it's thickening up on you a little bit. If you stir it just a little bit, it should loosen it back up. Don't stir it unless you have to, but we're going to pour these layers. If you watched my last video, I had to bang down the soap on the ground a lot between layers, and it was just because the batter had really thickened up on me, and I wanted to make sure there was no air pockets. But if you have a very good consistency with your soap, you don't have to bang it down till right at the end. Now that I've finished pretty much all my layers, I'm just going to take any excess soap that I have in these containers and just kind of, put it along the top kind of messily here and there, the best that I can get it out there. It doesn't have to look perfect. Actually, we're going to swirl it around on the top, so it doesn't matter at all. For some reason, no matter what I do, I am the most messiest soaper. No matter how much I've tried to be a little bit neater with it, it's just not going to happen. So I've just had to face the fact of it, but it's okay. I'm just going to swirl across the top. Nothing super fancy, just a little nice swirl to kind of look like creamy vanilla and dark chocolate. I'm going to clean up around the edges just because I'm going to be putting the lid on it and I do not want it to stick. in the lid to dry and be hard to get off. Okay, so now I'm going to put the lid on to help insulate and prevent ash, and be sure to stick around for the cut. After 18 to 24 hours, you're going to unmold your soap, and just make sure you don't do this too soon because it will be harder to get out of the mold and be harder to work with because it will be soft. Okay, so I have here my little handy dandy soap cutter. Even though I'd like to get a new one, this one still does the trick. So let's see what this soap looks like. See if it turned out as I hoped. And voila. We have the bottom layer with the caramel color, and the top layer is chocolate and vanilla swirl. But like I said before, this soap really turned out to smell more like brownie batter. So I have changed things up a little bit with it, and I'm not even going to name it anything related to caramel. And I add a little touch onto it. Super cute. So I ended up changing the name of it to Brownie Bite, and wait till the very end to see, after I plane and bevel it, what it looks like, because I took a little section out of it with a little small cookie cutter to make it look like a bite had been taken out of it. So stick around and check it out.